check out Cajun Lights, your complete dog hunting outfitter. Tracking equipment, leashes, collars, dog supplies, and much, much more. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. And don't forget their outstanding lineup of lights. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. Elite nutrition products are the hottest thing on the market right now for dog and horse owners. And Houndsman XP is a dealer. You can find all their products on our website at houndsmanxp.com. Over the past 5 years, you've tuned into this podcast, and I don't take it lightly. We have built a mutual trust. And when I recommend a product, it's because I believe in it, I use it, and I'm given my seal of approval for that. I'm putting my name on that. And with Elite Nutrition products, I do trust it. I do use it. I've seen great results with their essential dogs, their pre and probiotics, their tick-borne disease treatment. It's all natural. It's a great alternative to pharmaceuticals when used appropriately. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition. Available from houndsmanxp.com.
We went out the first time, and she actually got a rabbit, and she'd only got maybe 3 rabbits in her whole career. We don't intentionally even flush them, but we accidentally flushed one, and she got it. The next time out, one of the best hunts I ever had with her, my hawking partner and I went out, and she took 3 squirrels in 45 minutes. And if you hear me talk, we don't have like park squirrels here. We don't have like the urban, there's not a big squirrel population. So there's a lot of hawking usually to be done and to even get 3 slips. And she went out and just boom, 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 3 slips, a bird that just had her toe cut off. And that was one of the best hunts that I ever had with her.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. And this is another remotely recorded episode. I've been trying for, it feels at least like a good year almost, trying to coordinate this with Heather and have her on the show. In the meantime, she's been on a couple of the other podcasts and stuff that are out in the ether. And I wanted a chance to talk to her, though, and get her story on here, as well as talk about her business, Mountain State Falconry Supply, and some of what she has to offer and kind of the inspiration behind what made her want to start offering falconry equipment and things like that to people, and also talking about some of her personal falconry, like flying Cooper's hawks and kestrels and some other stuff that we have common interests about. So anyway, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into this episode with Heather McNemar, and here we go. Well, good morning. Thank you again for joining me at the butt crack of dawn. Appreciate
That's
you.
pretty early.
Yeah. Now, when you told me that either 5 a.m. or 7:30, I was just like, oh, wow. Maybe there's somebody else in the world that has as much of a screwed up sleep schedule and schedule overall as me.
Yeah, I like to do my stuff in the morning.
Yeah. It's kind of how I have to do things by default also, just to kind of keep ahead. And as you know, my schedule is all over the place all the time. So if I don't stay on top of things and get an early start on the day, usually it gets away from me. Is that kind of what you find also?
Oh, absolutely. I don't like to have stuff hanging over my head. And the longer the day goes on, it gets harder to finish everything.
Yeah. Well, with all the things that you have to juggle, which I know is a lot, obviously, you're an entrepreneur as well as a falconer and things like that as well. Run me through your typical day. You get started super early. What parts of each day do you have allotted for business, falconry, family, et cetera, et cetera? How do you balance everything out?
Well, first of all, I'm pretty lucky in the sense, I always joke around and tell people I'm retired. But I haven't had a quote unquote real job since my son was born. Pretty lucky to be able to focus on falconry a lot when he started school. I didn't go back to work. My my husband, he's an engineer, and it was just something that, we were able to do, but I've also never been able to sit still. So, just get up early and, weigh the birds that I'll be hawking that day. I like to take care of, this time of year, it's the red tails. I'll, get them fed early, and then I'll, weigh the Cooper's hawk, weigh the kestrel, see where we're at. And then usually the orders for the business, they get filled at dark. That's you after dark, after hawking hours. That's kind of when I focus on the business. So that's a typical day for me. Kiddo gets home from school, spend a little time with him, do dinner, just all the family stuff right before dark, and get up in the morning and do it again.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm always curious, as you know, how people balance their dailies and everything. And, some people, as you well know, some people can only hawk in the afternoon. Some people can only 100%. Hawk in the morning, so on and so forth. And, some people obviously aren't lucky enough yet, yours truly, to be retired, quote unquote.
Right.
So, rub it in. Thank you for that.
Oh, shoot. Yeah. If I didn't have the luxury of the lifestyle that I have, I definitely couldn't be as hardcore about falconry. It's something that it basically consumes every day. And, squirrel season rolls around, I'm flying the red tails. When I put the red tails up, I'm flying the kestrel, and then we've got the Cooper's hawk this year. So there's always a bird that I'm flying. And right now at this point in my life, I've still got the energy to do it. So I'm taking advantage of that now.
I'm starting to find each year that I'm having to find new kind of constructive ways to kind of keep the energy and the balance,
right?
Just constantly.
Absolutely. Yeah, every season's different too, So get more seasons under your belt, and sometimes you just don't have the gumption that you used to either.
No, and you find that the things that you used to like, you don't really like so much anymore, and vice versa. And the things that you want to prioritize change from year to year and all that kind of stuff too. So there's that also.
Absolutely. And that's something too that I like about falconry. I've been one of those people all my life that I've had a lot of revolving hobbies, and falconry is one of those things that there are so many opportunities that you can continually change, your goals each season, the birds that you're flying. And if you get settled in with one and you want to challenge, it's really the only thing that I've stuck with for any length of time, because there's all of these milestones that you can reach. There's all of these different facets that, you can explore. And I really like that about falconry.
Well, and to piggyback off that, there's always the variability and the different factors that play into things too, where sometimes just by default, our goals are shifted, or the goalpost is shifted, so to speak, for us anyway, with habitat loss, with what we have, available to us, and all that kind of crap too. So
absolutely. And you've got to think about, some years it's, you've got family obligations and you've got to change your goals. But I've always been fortunate to be able to find a way to do falconry, even when there are things that pop up that life, we'll just say life. Even when life pops up, you can find a little, fly a kestrel for a season. If you don't have time for a Cooper's hawk, like who does? Not very many people do. So there's these times in my life that I haven't been able to fly a Cooper's hawk, but this year I've got this little bit of time and I have the luxury that I can do that. And when I have the time, I like to explore those things.
Well, and how's that going for you? By the way, is this your first time around with the Cooper's hawk, or have you tried it before?
No, tried it before. This is actually just the first successful one. I think that's something that a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I've flying this bird successfully, and you don't hear about all the failures that lead up to it. You just see the good stuff. But yeah, I've flown a couple before this one, and only took like two at a game. I mean, Cooper's hawks just inherently want to kill themselves. It's not something that that's easy. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's just one of those things that until I was able to learn to manage and control the things that were within my control, if you can't do that part with the Cooper's Hawk, you're probably going to fail because there's so much that can go wrong with them anyway. So that took a few seasons for me, and it took some Cooper's Hawks, and it took a Sharpie, and it took some other birds. Like I learned from Falcons about some things with accipiters. There's just a lot that went into it. And even this season has been a major, major struggle and pushed me a lot. Like I've had to be focused and be, you cannot let your guard down if you're going to be successful with a passage Cooper's Hawk. You just can't. It's just not something that's possible. And here's the thing: I can go out tomorrow morning and the bird just fly into a tree, and that's just the way it is. And that's falconry. But I appreciate the fact that this season has really pushed me, and I've not been able to be a lazy falconer this season. You have to stay on top of it. And I like that. I like that about falconry too. You can make it as hard as you want or as easy as you want.
Yeah. No, I agree. And accipiters in general, I've since flying this first goshawk that I flew this past season, for Seth and stuff, accipiters are one of those, you can't appreciate the extra level of the extra level of that, flying those types of birds. It doesn't matter. I mean, Sharpies, sure, they're easier, especially if you imprint one, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, any accipiter, it just requires an extra level of effort.
Absolutely. And I've not flown an IS accipiter at all. So everything that I've flown has been passage birds. And when I got into falconry, I never imagined that would be the direction that I took. I was like, yeah, this is crazy. These birds are crazy. They don't like you. They're hard to train. Like, why would I have no connection with the bird? And the longer that I've been in it, the more that you realize those behaviors are exactly what you're looking for. If you want to hawk, if you're a hawker, if you want to dead things in your hawking bag, I mean, passage coop, once you get one going, a goss, accipiters are where it's at.
Yeah. It's just the flip side, the trade-off to that, though, is just if you're not prepared for the extra level of, as we were talking about, the extra level of that's required to manage one and deal with one, then I mean, it's, it all just goes back to how much are you willing to put up with, and 100%. And how much is the other thing? How much are the other things important?
It's not a little bit of work for a lot of reward. It's a lot of work. It's pretty much flipped. Now once you get them going and they're smoking, but it's just it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off.
Well, and it's just like, whenever I did the episode with McDermott, and he was talking about, ironically enough, when we talked a little bit about the whole passage coop thing, he made the comment that usually the people that, if they failed with them before, the people that eventually become successful with them are people like yourself that are quote unquote retired or whatever,
absolutely,
or have the time to dedicate to them every single day.
Yeah. It is not a bird that, if you have other things going on in your life and you don't have the time for it, you're not going to be successful, and also if you have the time and you're just not dedicated to it, you're not going to be successful. And there are other birds, there's just a lot of other birds out there that fit everyone's lifestyle, but you definitely have to have the time and the commitment to do a passage.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just think accipiters in general, if you just don't have the time, or if you don't have the extra time that you would have, I guess that you could be a little bit more, I hate to use the word lax, but with other species, but
Absolutely.
Then, you're going to need to use that time that you would be able to have in your, kind of spare your reserve time or whatever. That's going to automatically be allotted to the extra time you're going to need to put into an accipiter. So
100%. 100%.
But once again, someone that goes from their apprenticeship to a fresh general, they're always like, "Yay, passage coop," or whatever.
I know that's my favorite. I'll just fly a passage coop, and it's like, okay, good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like I
hear that a lot.
Yeah, one of those live and learn type of things. But anyway, yeah. So, out of curiosity, then before we shift topics off of this, I am curious though, what has been your specific routine in getting this particular bird that you have been successful going? Like, what has worked for you with this invasion?
So it's been, I don't want to say I trained it like a red tail, but there was a lot of hooding in the beginning, and I had some husbandry issues because when I tried to make the move outside to the mew, there was just, if you're still finding the weight of that bird and they're still not trained, they're not ready to go out unhooded in the mew. They're just not. So in the beginning, there was a lot of hooding. I did have a leg injury with this bird because of that before I realized, okay, this is not working. But yeah, I take the weight down a little every day, a ton of glove time. So now if the bird is not on my glove, she is mostly hooded. If she's on my glove, she's unhooded. And that's, she's a passage, and that's this year. That's right now, what that routine looks like. But I also fly her every day. That they have to be flown. You keep them. If you're an accipiter person too, you know that you gotta fly the bird if they're at weight. But yeah, I mainly trained the bird like a red tail, not quite with, I don't go crazy in the very beginning with like overstimulating, like when I trained the Sharpie in the last two coops, not as overstimulating as I am with a red tail. It's a little bit different of a ball game, but still the same process, around the house, exposing them to dogs and, people and, different colors of shirts and like all of that. But then just onto the creants, onto the free flight. I do not free fly any bird until they're wed to the lure. That's just I always wed a bird to the lure. It's just, I know some people don't, but I just always see I see the value in that with every bird that I've flown, with how I hawk and where I live. So once they're wed to the lure, free fly. I bagged the bird, a couple times, but not as much as I bag a kestrel, because they're already a bird killer. This bird had killed a ton of birds before I got a hold of her. She was fattest bird that I've ever trapped. She was 666 grams off the trap. No crop, but system was had a little bit in it, but her breast was just like, it was like bulging. It was like the opposite of a 1 on the keel. It was like way more than a 5. Crazy. So yeah, 666 off the trap, and she's flying now at like 420. And I didn't even think that was possible. And if you just say those numbers to people, they're like, "You're flying that bird too light." It's like she's fit now. She's healthy. She looks amazing when she's flying. She was doing really well for herself. So she didn't need a lot of baggies, but bag the bird and go hawking. Right. Hawk the bird. That's the short of it. Once you get them out and free flying, just hawk them. That stuff works itself out in the field if you know what you're looking for and you make those adjustments when you see things that you don't like.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that, the other people that I've talked to that have been largely successful, repeatedly over and over again with passage coopers especially have said pretty much the same thing. Like usually they're trying to get that bird out 10 to 14 days real quick, wed to the lure, basically like man down enough to where they tolerate you, wed to the lure, go hawking. And they're still kind of sort of half manned, but you can either get them back with
but they're coming to that lure.
Or bring a live quail with you or something in the field or whatever, pigeon, whatever the case is.
Absolutely. I did always take a live pigeon or something with me every time. Yeah. So, I mean, the two attempts that I made, it was kind of a similar kind of deal. But eventually I just had to keep them so low that, it just wouldn't even leave the glove after a while to have any kind of field control whatsoever. So those just got fattened back up and turned loose. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like everyone knows, I mean, not every, and especially Cooper's hawks, I hear a lot of people like there's just, you might fly 10 of them and one of them is a falconry bird, Now I've been fortunate. The other two I had, I mean, one of them took 2 at a game and then I cut the other one loose when my grandmother got sick. It may have worked out. I don't know, but I really liked that bird. That bird was coming around. Honestly, that first one, totally my fault. Like I wasn't ready. I was not the level of falconer I needed to be, even though I had the time for it. So it may have worked.
Completely relate to that for sure. Yeah. I 100%. I think that there is just a certain, a level of know-how and a certain level of time that, if you don't meet those things, if you do become successful with one and you're not meeting those requirements, then you found probably a unicorn of a bird.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't even know how that bird would even exist, but anyway, especially at Cooper's, but
right.
Whatever. Yeah.
Right.
But, well, yeah, no, thanks for the insight. It sounds like the path that you took is similar to the other people that I've talked to where, imagine that have had success and had at least some degree of an easier time with it. But yeah, so you're still doing the flying kestrels right now though, right?
Yeah. So, I actually, and this is kind of interesting too. Last season I flew 2 kestrels, and my hawking partner and I over the years have just figured out with the way we hawk, you always 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So you hate like getting ready for this season and then your bird goes down and now you can't hawk and the slips are primed. So we always have like I won't even say a backup bird because we fly both, we fly both birds, whatever we're flying. But so there's always 2 kestrels here. I did think this year, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this Cooper's hawk. So I'm going to cut one of these kestrels loose. So I molted one out and I cut the other one loose. She actually had like a predisposed seizure disorder and she'd had a couple of seizures and got her, the vet was like, they may come back and they may not. And she was doing really, really well. But my fear was if I brought the bird's weight back down to flight weight, she may have another seizure. So at weight, she was flying like a wild bird again. So I went ahead and cut her loose this season and then just flew the one kestrel. But unfortunately, she had a hallux talon sheath injury from last year. And this is another one of those things. Our season may have lasted longer with her, but I think I left that talon too long. Like she didn't really need it anyway. And there was like a bone spur loss when she lost it the first time. She lost a little bit of that bone spur and it came off on her 70th head of game this season. I picked her up off the starling and got her on the glove. And I looked and I was like, crap, we're done. It's just hanging there again. So then now I'm just down to the Cooper's hawk for the rest of the season. And my hawking partner was like, yeah, next year it's going to be 2 kestrels in a coop because we're always, it's just always hard to make it to the end of the season if you hawk nonstop. If you are a hawker, it's just hard to make it to the end of the season with one bird, and for us, that's apparently 3 birds. Apparently in falconry micro season, we need 3 with the way we hawk.
Well, yeah, the Cooper's hawk thing works both ways too. You never know when a wild one's going to come out and decide to
exactly
make a meal out of one of your kestrels and stuff too, and all that kind of crap.
100%. So yeah, and I have to say the kestrels are one of those birds for me anyway that once I figure, it's almost like there's a formula for them, and I'm not saying they're easy. They are not easy, especially if you haven't flown one and you don't know the formula. But there are just things about it that if you do this, then this happens. And if you use this piece of equipment, this is what works. And in falconry, there's more than one way to do a lot of things, but there are some things with kestrels that's just like, why don't you do this? Because it works every time. And once you get that formula down with them, you can kind of run a kestrel on autopilot. And if you do like to hawk, it's just one of those workhorses, just like a red tail, that they're solid and they just work if you follow this, certain procedure, this certain routine.
Sure. Well, and also to go along with that too, I think that if you get the right kestrel, they actually will outwork most species and do it willingly. And if what I found, and I don't know what your opinion on is on this, but whenever I was hawking a kestrel every day for hours a day, what I found was if I took one day off, that threw everything off. Like for at least a day or two, like that kestrel for whatever reason would act a little screwy. If I took a day off and then the following day tried to do the same stuff I was doing 2 days prior, it wasn't quite there. It was almost kind of like,
interesting.
I found that if I took one day off sometimes even, I'm a big believer that you should give your birds breaks and stuff, but like with a kestrel, it seemed like it was almost kind of counterintuitive. And
that's really interesting. They do. I mean, most birds thrive on routine, and kestrels really do thrive on routine. But I do take a day off, and with kestrels, the way that I hawk, my hawking partner works throughout the day, and we've hawked together for, oh my gosh, 7-8 years. It's just kind of works. It's a lot easier to be in the field with someone who knows what they're doing when both of you have a routine. So he works during the week, and then on the weekend, we hawk mornings, and then during the week we hawk basically early afternoon, evenings. So I always take one day off on like Fridays to swap the birds to a morning schedule. And I've had pretty good luck with that as long as I still do jump ups. Like jump ups is something with a kestrel. I don't jump up the Cooper's hawk. They don't need it. But with a kestrel, I always do, if the bird can do 150 jump ups in a day and they stay fit and they still get some of that energy out. So that's really interesting about, flying it every day and getting off routine one day. What was the behavior of the bird the next day?
She's just
when
off.
You said she was like off, not keen or just not interested or.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the slips and the reactions and things like that wouldn't be instantaneous like normal. But the day after that though, right back on it. Huh.
That's.
I don't know. But see, the funny thing is that out of the handful that I've flown, there was only maybe 2 of those days with each bird that I would take. And ironically enough, one of those times with the last kestrel I flew, the one that was probably the best one that I've flown, I took the day off because the next day we were kind of having some guys down to have like a little mini meet or whatever. Mm-hmm. I flew her that day, still caught like 5 starlings with her that day, but ended up losing her that day because of the kind of the offness a little bit. It's just a little aloof, just not quite as into it mentally. You could just tell that she wasn't as focused. And So I don't know, and once again, I'm not going to sit here and say 100% sure. We can never in falconry say 100% sure anything, whatever. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows? Right. I mean, I don't know if there was something else going on, who knows? I mean, but two different kestrels doing the same kind of behavior after the same circumstance, it kind of leads you to believe that there's some kind of common denominator or kind of a link there somewhere, but who knows? I mean, I just I found that out of routines being important, kestrels definitely are
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
they do thrive on routine. And with kestrels, like I said, I jump them up every day. I jump them up for the rest of their feed after we hawk. So once a week, I call to the lure. But on those other days after we hawk, I jump them up for the rest of their feed. And I have found that doing that, it really does. It keeps them fit and they just settle into that routine. And then on the off day, I max out their jump ups. If they're getting 11 grams, they're going to jump for all of that. And I just cut it up into like a paste, their food to a paste that day, close to a paste, and then just control the size of the tidbits that way and jump them for all their feed and at least 150.
That's so. I've never once ever done jump ups with mine and stuff. That's interesting that you say that too, because that's something that I normally wouldn't think with that small of a bird. And I mean, whenever you say jump ups, exactly what kind of height are we talking about here? Like
above my head, so I'll set them on the ground, and then I hold my hand kind of just basically out horizontally, and then when they go to jump, I lift my hand up as high as I can. And then, I do 150 of those. And also it's like within a 15-minute period too, people don't think about that. Like you have to do it as quickly as you can. And if a kestrel can do 150 jump ups in a 15-minute period, they're fit enough to catch game. So I use it for fitness, and I also use it as an indicator of the bird being at weight. If they can do 250 jump ups, they're probably heavy. You're probably flying the bird heavy. If they can only do 30, you probably got that bird a little light. And I like using multiple indicators for dialing in a bird and dialing in a bird's weight. If you're basing all of your decisions off of one thing, you're not going to know whether or not you might be wrong. There's a good chance you're wrong if you've just based your decisions here on hawking the bird on one thing. So jump ups I use for that as well.
Well, I mean, I and that's cool that you say that though too, because I wouldn't think that a kestrel would stay that fit if the 150 jump ups are just like a couple feet off the ground when you're holding your hand all the way.
No, it's above my head. So now I'm only like 4'11".
I was going to say a couple feet.
Yeah, a couple feet exactly. Shoot, I used to try to use a ladder. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe if I use a ladder, and then I'm like, no,
you might be closer to the 5 feet with that. Maybe if a full extension ladder,
right?
You might be about a 5-foot jump then.
Shoot. Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, sorry, I had to throw in a height joke there with you. Anybody that knows you knows that you're vertically challenged. So
I am very vertically challenged. I actually am 1 inch from needing a booster seat by law. Now I use one in my truck, but yeah, so I look like a toddler. My hawking partner jokes about that all the time. He's like, we're going to get pulled over for me having a toddler out of her car seat.
That's beautiful. Yeah, no, that's funny though, man. Like I said, everybody's got a different thing, different approach. And I don't know about you too, but, I mean, with kestrels, anytime I ever fly them also, I pretty much exclusively just feed them, a rich red meat diet, either off the starlings or, sparrows or whatever.
100%.
And out of curiosity, what's your metabolic rate average been? I pretty much every kestrel that I've flown that I've fed off of rich red meat consistently always usually averages out to be around roughly like 0.4 grams per hour, like every single time. Almost.
Yeah. So when they're at weight, Most of the ones that I've flown have been between 0.45 and 0.6. And if you get above that 0.6, you're usually getting them a little low if they're doing the 150 jump up. So that metabolic rate is just the other indicator I use. If they go down to 0.3, they're probably got them heavy, So most of the ones that I've flown during hawking season, 0.45 to 0.6, somewhere in between there.
Okay, yeah, and so that's good to know that's pretty consistent.
And the interesting thing about that with kestrels, with red tails, I have found that the bigger birds are going to burn a little bit more, which just makes sense. But like with kestrels, I've flown all the way down to, I think the smallest kestrel I've ever hawked was 84 grams. It was a very small female, and hawked all the way up. The last bird, the one that I just cut loose, she flew around 115. Metabolic rates at weight, almost identical. So,
and so that checks out too. I like getting other people's input on that too. But yeah, same deal. Pretty much every kestrel that I've flown has flown the best around the mid 80s. And that was the next thing I was going to ask you was, if you've flown one that's been a little bit bigger. I mean, pretty much around here, the size, there's no size discrepancy with they're all pretty small around here. So I didn't know if you guys had roughly the same kind of deal where you're at too, or.
Yeah, we usually trap. There are larger females that we trap, but as far as flying them on starlings, I've not noticed a catch rate. Like I haven't noticed an 84 gram kestrel losing starlings on account of them being too small. Like that's just never really been a thing. And on the flip side, the bigger ones, if you do fly a bigger one, like they're not any more successful or less successful. So
I was just curious because like I keep hearing stories from people that, back in the day, kestrels just used to be a lot bigger around here.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
And then like other parts of the country, kestrels just were bigger, and then like trending over time. Now it's
a reduction in size. Yeah,
talking about unicorns, it's hard to find like kestrels now, at least where I'm at, that trap weight is more than like in the 100 teens. But eventually they fly. Mid 80s, like low 90s at the heaviest. Usually. Yeah. So
from. And see, I haven't really been in the sport and trapping as long as a lot of falconers have. But when I started, I think we really started trapping kestrels like back in 2007. No, that's 2019 is when I think I flew my first kestrel. And from that time, we always trap, every year for a kestrel. And I haven't seen a reduction in size from where I live. We just always... You'll catch one or two larger ones, but they mostly are the size that you're talking about in the last, since I've been trapping.
Okay, cool. Well, and I guess since you kind of sort of, just for a nanosecond there, kind of touched on things, remind me again, touched on, this particular next topic, of course, is remind me again, like how long you have been in falconry now? I can't remember. I
started in 2016. Yeah. Okay. So 9
years.
We've
been in it roughly about the same amount of time then.
It feels like not very long with what there is to learn in the sport. You're always learning.
Sometimes it feels like an eternity too. but yeah, no, 2015 was my first season. So yeah, we've been roughly about the same amount of time then. And so, remind me again, what it was that kind of, I of course read your book, which we'll talk about that later as well a little bit, but for the people that haven't read your book or know much about you, how did you discover it and get into it?
It's not that interesting. I grew up deer hunting. I live in West Virginia, born and raised, and deer hunting's like whitetail. That's like a big thing around here, and it's a big thing in my family. So every year we would go to deer camp. We have a camp up on the mountain, and that was my grandmother deer hunted. She was a deer hunter, so that the guys and the girls in the family would always hunt, but it was like never my thing. Deer hunting. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't be quiet. And I never connected with it, but I grew up around hunting. And, I saw a YouTube video. It was the Mongolians, and they were hunting golden eagles. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. That looks really cool. I wonder if that's legal here, you know? Yeah. And it was literally that. Like, and this is funny. I don't know that I've ever talked about this on an interview before, but we were talking about it the other day, about like, how did I even come about like seeing the video? And I literally think I was in one of those, you know, I want to say doom scrolling, but I was like, I was really interested in taxidermy at the time. And I was looking up how to taxidermy a crow, I think it was. And that popped up, you know, and that's literally that one video. I was like, this is a really awesome way to hunt. You know, I think that's really cool. And, yeah, that's literally it. I saw a YouTube video. That's how I got into it.
Fair enough. Everybody falls into it different ways.
And then just became obsessed.
Yeah. No, it's kind of interesting that taxidermying a crow would bring up golden eagle hawk,
right? Right. It's like, why is this a suggested video for me?
I was going to say, I mean, and of course, you know, who knows with the way all these algorithms and crap work now, it's whatever. I mean, especially like post divorce, it's amazing the kind of crap that's coming up in my feeds now. I just don't even like, you know, we don't go into that, but I mean, like, right? Who knows, like what YouTube was thinking, like, oh, crows, here's a golden eagle, you know, whatever. Right. But no, that's nifty though. I mean, I'm always interested, especially in the people that, you know, that don't have hunting backgrounds like myself, how they discover it and get into it. But I mean, it sounds like you kind of have a fairly, like you said, you know, typical kind of way of falling into it is kind of how you discovered it then.
Yeah.
And as far as, you know, once you did get into it, I mean, it was been pretty typical standard approach to things, right? Red tails, and then of course the kestrels and all that.
And, you know, hawking's hard everywhere. But I talk about, you know, where I live a lot, and you'll hear me say, I always say, this is how falconry is where I live, because it is a little bit different here, with our terrain and our game availability. So red tails just makes sense here because of the available quarry. So that's just something that's where I started anyway. And I've just stuck with them because of what I have here and where I hawk. So,
yeah. Well, and I wish that, I know when I started my apprenticeship, I wish I would have seen the extra value in red tails, and you know, this upcoming season, that's what I'm going to go back to, reliable, you know, and
absolutely,
you know, I mean, I've heard so many people say, and I completely agree with it, that if red tails were as hard to acquire as like goshawks, then everybody would want to fly one all the time. Nobody would ever deviate from them, right. You know, but because there's just something about them. They're just so easy to get, comparatively speaking, of course. And, you know, they're so, once again, relatively speaking, you know, just more user friendly, that I think everybody just kind of takes them for granted. But, you know, if they were more rare, I think that everybody would have a much bigger, you know, hard on, right, for them, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
I especially since discovering squirrel hawking and how fun it is. And, you know, I know me personally, I'm not going to settle until I get one that is going to tolerate the dogs.
Sure.
And, you know, but it's going to be hard for me to deviate back away from squirrel hawking with red tails once I get the formula, you know, once I get my magic group together. And, you know, as far as other stuff goes, though, I mean, is there anything else that you've kind of wanted to fly, but can't, or just haven't had a chance to get to yet, or?
Yeah, absolutely. We just talked about how I got into falconry, and Golden Eagle was always on my list in the beginning. And then I'm like, I can't hawk that here. I would literally have to take 3 months off every year and go out west, and that's just not a point that I am in my life right now where that's something that I would do, so that's like a bucket list thing. But at the same time, once I realized, the right bird for where I live, then you're like, okay, I would be totally happy flying big female red tails on squirrels where I live for the rest of my life. Like that's my hawking. And I fly the Cooper's Hawks. I want something to fly in the off season because I like to hawk, but red tails on squirrels, that's my thing. Now, something's going to happen to the Cooper's Hawk that I have, and I cannot imagine that I won't do an IS at some, that's probably the next bird for me once something happens to the coop that I have. And hopefully that will be 3 or 4 years from now, but like in all likelihood, it'll be sooner than later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just happy to hear that you're one of these people that doesn't feel like they need to waste their time with one of these silly goshawks, so, Well, I got to tell you, I wouldn't even be opposed to it if I lived in the right place. I just don't. Yeah.
I don't. We have a really high percentage of fox squirrels here, and I cannot imagine putting the amount of time that I would put into a goshawk and money with the fox squirrels that we have. It just at some point there's going to be a season-ending injury if you consistently hawk them. I'm not talking about take your goss and bring it here, get a fox squirrel. This is like this trophy fox squirrel if you've never got one. I'm talking about consistently doing it. So, you get a big female red tail. Yeah, I've had toes amputated on a female red tail, but I've had more bites that they don't sever a tendon. It makes more sense. It makes more sense for where I live. And we don't have a huge rabbit population here either. So it's just, I hawk what I got.
I completely understand. And that's the same reason why, once again, I have to be the yin to everybody else's yang and throw an occasional gut punch to the goshawkers out there, of course. But, but I mean, I see the appeal and totally get the appeal and all that. But for me, I'm like you, the juice has to be worth the squeeze. And if I'm not able to reliably do all the things with a certain species, then I'm just not going to fly it. But once again, I've got to regardless get a dig in on the goshawkers and stuff anyway. But but yeah, no, I completely see what you're saying, and it's big reason. I mean, I've got just as many fox squirrels where I'm at too as gray squirrels, and but at any rate, it's hard to just deviate away from old reliable. Why when you can go trap a bird just right down the road for the cost of gas money and it's the best tool for the job, why you wouldn't continue to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and here too, like I said, the fox squirrels that makes up my mind for me, on what I'm going to fly. And it's not just for me, it's not just any red tail. And a lot of people think, that I'm one of those, oh, you have to fly a big red tail. I'm not. I have to fly one here in West Virginia, but you can fly a male red tail on gray squirrels all day long. You can do that. I just have to fly. I have to fly a big female red tail here. We just have too many fox squirrels.
Yeah, the last red tail that I flew was a nice tweener, size red tail, and she was a lot of fun and loved, it didn't matter what it was, loved squirrels, period. But after about the second or third bigger fox squirrel that she caught and got bit, then she didn't want them anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can run a bird on them with a few bad experiences.
Would still go hell after gray squirrels.
Yeah.
But she would see coloration of a fox, and my buddies were giving me hell. Oh, it's just not on weight. It's not blah 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 blah. And until they saw it with their own eyes, like I was just like, no, guys, she does not want fox squirrels specifically. They can't tell the difference. I'm like, yeah, they can. Yeah,
they have different behaviors too. A fox squirrel is a lot more intimidating, not just because of their size. So
a fox squirrel is going to be, throwing back a PBR, like eating nut, just staring at the red tail, daring it to come at it. Whereas, the gray squirrel is just going to be like, on crack trying to get away and skip all over. Yeah. I mean, one is much more sedentary than comparatively speaking than the other, for sure. So, I mean, fox squirrels, they love their PBR and cigarettes while they're eating their acorns and stuff and pecans. But it's just, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said for, once again, going back to doing what's best for what you have, and it's just, and honestly, in most areas, really, it's just hard to beat a good red tail. I mean, I wish I would have valued them more earlier in my career.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, we don't have a huge rabbit population, and I don't intentionally target fox squirrels, but like if I'm going through the woods, I might only get 2 slips, the entire time. And sure enough, one of those is going to be a fox squirrel. Sure. So that's just, now we did, this past year, finally add a dog. That took me a few years to get to a point in my falconry where I felt comfortable doing that. And just literally got the dog to add rabbit slips. But then I don't think I realized too how much she was going to help with the squirrel hawking. So that's been great. She's, I won't say just as good on squirrels as rabbits, but it's been a good addition to the team.
Sure. Well, and so then are you one of these people that have kind of decided that without the dog, it's not as fun and it's going to be hard to ever go back to if there's not a dog involved with hawking?
Not necessarily. No. So we fly this year, 4 red tails to keep going the whole season. So, 2 for me and 2 for my hawking partner. And the dog this past year, ended up really only working with one of the birds. And ironically, it was like the oldest, most hateful intermewed female, like the very first time out, and it was like, out of all the ones, we were just so wrong on it. It was kind of funny. Out of all the birds, we're like, oh yeah, she's, your old bird is not going to fly with the dog. And Dachshund, so these big females, we were really nervous about it. Mm-hmm. But about 40 seconds in, their first time out, the red tail goes down, smacks the dog, and then they have hawked together since. So it was really interesting to see. But I like hawking with the dog. I like squirrel hawking with the dog. But I could do it either. I could do it either way with the squirrel hawking. But definitely does make the falconry better when it works.
For sure. No, I feel you on that. It's cool though. So I mean, just, we won't spend a lot of time on it though, but how are you liking your dachshund overall? I mean, as far as just,
it's been great. It's been a great experience. I've never had a hunting dog, so grew up around hunting, but like, this is my first hunting dog. So I kind of didn't know what to expect. And I think the really cool thing about the whole process has been that it's like a family dog and a hunting dog, and you can see her turn on in the field, and she's just a totally different dog at home, So yeah, it's been great, and not easy, but easier than I expected. I think I put too much, I think I worried about it too much at first. And the dog is just, it's just in her genetics. Like she makes me look good. She makes me look good.
Sure. Yeah, no, and there's a lot to be said for if you get one from a good breeder that with good hunting lines and is already doing the things beforehand, then yeah, you're not going to have to put a ton of work into it. It's already going to be about half done for you by the time you actually get the dog. But man, it's hell otherwise though. I mean, it takes a lot more time, effort, and energy to get one going, build their confidence when they haven't had that foundation to start with. So that's cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Glad you're enjoying it. Well, and so I guess now would be a good time then I do want to ask you though, and I ask this question to pretty much every guest that I have on that has written a book or, done some kind of other endeavor. I mean, what the hell possessed you to be like, I want to write a book.
I want to write a book, and like a lot of people thought I was an apprentice. I basically was. I mean, I was by like first year general and like, why is this person writing a book when they don't know anything and they're just getting started? But I've always been a journal keeper. My grandmother was a journal keeper. She kept one every day, like since the 70s. She passed away a couple years ago. And now we have all of these journals that you can go back and like, what was the weather that day? Or what was she doing on my birthday? And she would like write about everyone. So journal keeping is just one of those things in my family that has always been important to me and making that footprint basically. So when I had that first really good season, my first 2 years as an apprentice sucked. They were just like, I took like five head of game in 2 years. And I was literally at a point where I said, if I cannot find a way to make this work and start taking game consistently, I'm quitting. And then I got the help that I needed and started taking game. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I really want to document this, because the people that helped me do that, my hawking partner and my mentor, both of our mentor, the guy that basically taught us everything we know about squirrel hawking, I was like, I want to find a way to honor that as well. So it just kind of fit, and squirrel hawk. When I look back at that book now, it's so funny, and like there's so many cringy parts and things that we did, but it's a snapshot in time, and I'm glad that I have it, because I've already forgotten more than I'll ever remember.
That's good. Yeah. And I think that, well, everybody's got different motivations, and, I think there's certain type, and like you kind of briefly mentioned, it's not like you're writing like a how-to book or anything. It was more or less kind of like a memoir, it's kind of how, it struck me whenever I read it.
Yeah.
And, I think that those kind of books and then other types of books, I mean, I think that it doesn't really matter how much experience you really have. I mean, everybody's got something to contribute in different ways, but it's a lot easier, I mean, to take that kind of book it for what it is at its face value and still get something out of it than, say if you were trying to do like a how-to or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And I think too, like, hawkers, people that actually, want to get to the point where they're taking game, the book is relatable. I hear a lot of people be like, yeah, I went through the exact same thing. This happened to me. It's something that, it's relatable to people getting started in the sport.
For sure. Yeah. I think that, and some people, with some people, I think the struggle is a lot more real, than others. I mean, some people are fortunate to have kind of that constant guidance and the constant, and some people are fortunate to have a lot more early success than a lot of people. But I continually have the debate with other falconers that I know, close friends or acquaintances or whatever, as to which is the better route to end up with, like early success or early struggle.
Right. So right. You get a little too big for your britches, right? If you have success early on,
it's a completely different path and outcome than say someone that can appreciate. Me personally, my take on it is like someone that has early struggles, say like yourself, is going to be able to identify and not take for granted when they really get that like first exceptional bird.
Yeah.
And yes, to a degree, everybody has a huge role, and what you put into it, of course, is what you get out of it as far as having a quote unquote exceptional bird or whatever. But I think that definitely they're all different. They're not all created equal. And if you get one that's just really in tuned and everything, it's a lot. If you end up with that bird as your first bird,
yeah,
you don't really appreciate what you've got as much as if you had the early struggle first before you ended up with that bird. That's just my opinion. So.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And that's something that, you've got some people too that are like in the sport for 20 years and they've flown one or two birds because they just get a bird that works, that's, and that's just one of those things. Yeah, there is a struggle if it's harder for you at the beginning. You do appreciate it more, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said for kind of being humbled early on, rather than kind of having to go through that a little bit after the fact. I think that once again, everybody's paths are different and everybody handles things different, but it's always
and if you stick with it, anyone who stays, if you stay in the sport and if you hawk, which is the whole point, if you do those things, you're going to you'll get yours eventually. That's falconry. That's just maybe at a different point in your falconry career, but knocks you down at some point.
For sure. Well, I mean, do you ever have any plans to write anything else, or is the inspiration struck you to come up with any other ideas for another book or anything? Or
I always keep thinking, I always say, at some point, I'm sure that there will be a time that there will be another book. Yeah. I don't know when that is, but I always think it's going to be a micro book because there's not a lot of micro books about hawking in the mountains. I get that with the business too. I get a lot of questions about hawking micros where I live in some of these different locations than people are used to hawking.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, I just was curious. So, I mean, other than obviously recording the Falconry Chronicles produced audiobook version of the squirrel hawking in Appalachia or whatever, that whole ordeal, I mean, aside from, making that available to people at some point, if I didn't know if there was going to be inspiration for you to do anything else as far as any other endeavors and that. So
I'm sure at some point the mood will strike me. I'll be like, yeah, it's time. But I have to admit too, like I was brought up in the old school of falconry. So even being on, even doing a podcast at all, even being on social media, that's something for me that's new. And I think if I didn't have the business now, I wouldn't even be as outward with my falconry as I have been.
I am the same way. And on that note, let's talk a bit about your business, because I think that there's still people that are kind of in the process of discovering,
absolutely
what you have to offer with all of that. And what's been the biggest challenge or the biggest hurdle with the startup and getting all that going that you've had to deal with your particular business?
This year, it has been product development. So in order for me to manage my hawking and the business, there's definitely been a trade-off with that. Orders still get filled, we're still, the amount of business that we're getting is the same, but I have so many things that I would like to expand on that I kind of haven't been able to because of the hawking. And the catch-22 of that is, the products that I do sell, the micro products that I sell, and the squirrel hawking products that I sell, it's all stuff that I use in the field. There's plenty of places to get just your falconry supplies and equipment. Was not trying to reinvent the wheel. with the business, but the business came about as something that, you know, it's like, I'm having trouble sourcing all of this micro stuff in the same place. So most of what Mountain State Falconry Supply sells is micro equipment that I couldn't find all in one place and couldn't get anywhere else. And then there's some other micro equipment on there that, you know, nobody else was even selling. So that's just, that's where it came about. But this year, the main problem has been, okay, I've got all of these things that I would like to expand on, and just finding the time to do it if you're a hawker.
Yeah. And once again, it always comes back to balance. And,
Yep.
you know, I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, trying to get into this other endeavor of doing these presentations, and then, you know, here in another couple months, I'm going to try my hand at abatement for the first time. And then any kind of side venture that you do, there's always a give and a take. And it seems like something sort of suffers a little bit. And it's just
100%.
To what degree?
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, you know, at this point in my life, like I said, that hawking, that's just one of those things that comes, you know, before the business. Like I said, the orders get filled. We just haven't expanded, and I'm excited. I'm excited to get that opportunity. But for me, I've got a little lull. You know, slips usually dry up here in by August, and we don't start squirrel hawking till November 1st. Now that'll probably change with the Cooper's hawk, because she can she can, you know, hawk longer. She can take those slips that the kestrel can't. But at the same time, you know, I've got it in my mind that, okay, I'm going to sit down and do some of these product expansions, hopefully, come August. So we'll see.
Well, and just giving a little bit of feedback, you know, I mean, I tried, I have one of the Kestrel specific, you know, bow perches that you and Molinex kind of developed together. I do like those quite a bit. I am a big fan of the airline cable, you know, tie deals, you know, as far as, you know, replacing O-rings, because there's nothing more annoying eventually than hearing caw-caw, caw-caw, you know, like every time a bird baits. And so that's nice. It's ultra quiet and and that bow perch is just, that's one of those things we were talking about earlier with the formula for the kestrel. I cannot tell you how many, I'm not saying all setups, but I tried so many setups, and it's like, why did I do this when this bow perch with very specific leash setup, a very specific length, there's a reason for all of it. And if Matt wouldn't have developed that and went through all of that himself, I wouldn't. That when I switched to that bow perch, that was the first time I had zero husbandry problems with feathers, no feathers breaking, no leg scale damage. No, it's one of those things, we joke about it like being this magical bow perch, but it just works. It works. It's crazy. It's like use the shelf perch, free lofting, all of those things just did not, a block perch, all of those things. I would always have a husbandry issue, and I haven't had one since I started using that perch. It just blows my mind. That's cool. Yeah. I've noticed that too. I've tried pole perches. I've tried shelf perches. I've tried other bow perches. I've tried same kind of deal. It seemed like there was always a way that, because as you know, kestrel deck feather, tail feathers, especially, they're just so, they're worse. The easiest thing to break in the whole world. And it didn't matter what I did. It seemed like they were always finding ways to pinch, break, whatever. And then, the time that I had one on this bow perch, though, it was never an issue. And, I have to casually remind you, though, we can't give Mr. Molinex too much credit, and we can't talk too favorably about him. Talk about someone whose ego will instantly inflate and blow up. We can't give him too many props. We have to temper ourselves a little bit here. So, So no more compliments for him as the rest of this episode.
No.
But that being said, he did a good job with the design of that. I do agree. And, the other thing I like that's available on your website too, and I had him on the podcast as well. I was really happy that someone finally made available a kestrel size template for anklets. Because while I, could make them, it seemed like every time I would try and freehand one of the damn things, I would have to make like 3 pairs just to get one good one, because I'd always make one just that littlest bit too big or whatever, end up pissing myself off. And I'm a really big fan of that particular template that Rich made for you. Rich Motes made for you, and is available on the website as well. I use that pretty consistently now with my, and just a little extra feedback too. That also works well for small owls and stuff too.
There you go.
Yeah. So
there you go.
I mean, I recommend anybody that is
definitely not revolutionary, but
no.
So handy. It's like just another one of those things that work. I used for years. I just used a little piece of clear plastic or piece of cardboard or whatever, and that was my template. But those things you can crank them out. Now, one thing about those that I do like too, if you cut the strip first, the width of the strip. I mean, you can make them so fast. Cut the width of the strip, put the template down, and just and it's just done. I don't know.
Yep.
I like them too. That's how I make mine.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And I can't even tell you how many nights that I was cursing at myself, just like, just making one a little extra long or one just a little too short or whatever. And
right.
that's not an issue anymore. So
it's like, where has this thing been?
Yeah. And, I mean, the other thing I've been kind of curious to ask you about, though, I mean, I've seen other people order and say good things about this micro-sized giant hood that you've kind of come up and developed recently.
Oh, yeah.
As well. But
that's fantastic.
Yeah. What feedback have you been given from that?
So far the feedback has been great. I think something that a lot of people with the micros, because we offer them in a medium and a large size too, but with the kestrel giant hood specifically, I think a lot of people aren't used to the difference that it makes, the guillotine door. So instead of, opening with a hinge, it's a guillotine door. And that's something that I've used since the very beginning. And a lot of people are like, well, where's the leash hole? And it's like, you don't even need a leash. I don't put a leash on any of my birds when I put them in a giant hood. I just don't like that. But at the same time, you don't even have to now with the kestrel, because you stick your hand up and you get them on the perch, and you're holding their jesses, and you slowly put that guillotine door down as you're moving your hand out. And now the bird's in there. I like that setup. It works for me really well with every kestrel that I've had. And we've gotten good feedback on it. But it's also, that is one of those things that a lot of people don't use a guillotine door for a kestrel. And I think it's making a difference in people's falconry because of it.
Well, and I'm glad that you went ahead and just started talking about that, because of the whole design. When I saw people using it or whatever, I was just like, I don't know if I can get on board with that door, to be honest. Like, that, it was screwing with my head so bad.
Right?
I'm like,
if you've not used it.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know how I feel about that.
You're like, I want the hinges.
But, right? It's like this is, I don't know. This might just be a little too different. I don't know. But, I guess it'd be one of those things where I'd have to try it for myself to see. But I don't know. Like, that's the one thing I was going to ask you specifically about that design was what people thought about it, because I know when I saw it, I was like, what the hell is that?
What is this?
I was just like, how is this going to work? Because, some of those birds, I can see it. My instant thought was the birds that don't want to stay on the perch, that are going to hop right back down as you're pulling your hand out and stuff. I mean, that's kind of a, how do you deal with that in particular, and whatever. But I mean, that's not very many that you're going to encounter. But
in the beginning, they always hop off, and that's one of those things that's just part of your manning and your training. And when it's a brand new off the trap kestrel, don't lift the door if you're like somewhere where the bird can get out. You just take the bird in a room or like a dark room. So in the very beginning, the way that I get them used to it is I take them in a closet to get them out. And if they're not on the perch, I can still see the jesses, so you just reach in for the jesses. And again, so the door is made to where the door will like stay there if you're not holding it. You can adjust the tension on this giant hood. So you just crack it until you can pinch the jesses and, get them out that way. So, and then once they start sitting still on that perch, you crack that door and you can see the jesses there, and you just put your hand in and pinch the jesses. So, and then lift the door the rest of the way and pull them out.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah. Definitely a different design though.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and like I said, I'm just going to end up probably having to get one and try it for myself because, I've over the years, I've tried my best to become way better about not making a judgment until I've actually tried something or experienced something for myself. Sure. So, who knows? I might, try it and be like, oh, this is like the greatest damn thing ever. Where has this been my whole life? Whatever. I don't know.
But I get that though too, especially adopting new things when something else for you already works. It's kind of like, what's the point? But yeah, I really like that design for kestrels.
Cool. Well, I mean, we've already talked about most of the gamut of everything, but I mean, we of course have to cover the same core things that I cover every single episode, which I need to get one of your favorite couple of one or two, whatever, either favorite experiences with a particular bird, hunting story, whatever, and then, end on a piece of advice that you might want to pass along to people. And I mean, we've covered most other stuff that I think we're going to cover. So, but yeah, go ahead and share those, and we can come close to ending.
Okay, favorite hawking story. Was that one of them?
Could be experience, could be memories of a particular bird.
Best bird that I ever flew was not a huge bird for what I fly now, but the bird did well in spite of me. She just had an attitude that was incredible. She flew at 1,220 grams. And the best season that I had with her was her first season. And that's the first season that I really started taking game. And I was relentless with that bird. I put her through the ringer. There were times when she was injured and she could have used time off, but I was like, no, she's not. It's like, oh, she's got this bite. Well, she's not tucking her foot, so let's go. Let's get out there and hawk. And like in hindsight, I'm like, that bird would have lasted a lot longer if I would have had a little more self-control. But she taught me more than any other bird. First double I ever got on squirrels was 2 fox squirrels with her. She suffered a lot of foot injuries that eventually, I think, did her in. There was finally one that, she had a hallux talon that was already had a lot of bites in the couple seasons before. And she finally got one that did her in, and we had to have her put down. But the season before that, one of my favorite things about this bird was, and if you've ever had a toe amputated on a bird, you realize it just depends on which toe it is, if it really is going to make a difference and what quarry you're hawking. But the year before, she had a toe amputation from a severed tendon that couldn't be repaired. And we went out after this particular toe amputation, gave her a month off. I'm like, okay, I'm learning. I'm going to give her the time that she needs, and we're going to get back in the field. And it was the first toe amputation I'd ever had. And I'd worried the whole time, like, I'm going to have to cut her loose because she's only going to be able to mouse now. And this is my best bird I've ever flown. That's going to suck. We went out the first time, and she actually got a rabbit, and she'd only got like maybe 3 rabbits in her whole career. We don't intentionally even flush them, but we accidentally flushed one and she got it. The next time out, one of the best hunts I ever had with her, my hawking partner and I went out, and she took 3 squirrels in 45 minutes. And if you hear me talk, we don't have like park squirrels here. We don't have like the urban, there's not a big squirrel population. So there's a lot of hawking usually to be done and to even get 3 slips. And she went out and just boom, 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 3 slips, a bird that just had her toe cut off. And that was one of the best hunts that I ever had with her. But that's the bird that's in squirrel hawking in Appalachia in that book. And she taught me everything I know pretty much about squirrel hawking came from the behaviors of that bird. And still to this day, there's things that other birds that I fly benefit from because of her. So that's one of my best bird, and a lot of really great stories with her on her 100th head of game in her falconry career. She went up in a tree and grabbed a gray squirrel, and gray squirrels were just something that if she got stuck, she'd kill the squirrel up in the tree and be like, how am I going to get her down? And it was right before dark. And on her 100th squirrel, she was so gluttonous. And that's something that, that's another trait about big female red tails is they are gluttonous. That's just a personality trait that the big ones have. They cannot help themselves. And that bird was, so wed to the lure and so gluttonous that when she got ready to break in, I'm like, well, this is going to suck. She's going to eat this whole thing. And I just blew the whistle and she just brings the squirrel down to the lure. Like I have this whole squirrel, but I'm just going to bring it down because I'd like to have that lure too. And that was like a testament to the type of bird that she was. Love that bird.
It's hard to replace a bird that's that reliable. And, for sure. Yeah. Results not typical, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, no, well, that's awesome. And I guess, like I said, we'll get your last, your piece of advice that you want to share to either current or prospective falconers, and we can go ahead and wrap this up.
Sure. I would say this, don't get a paper sponsor. They're out there, they're everywhere. If you want to get into the sport, make sure that you understand that falconry is taking game with a bird of prey. If you want to do something else with a bird of prey, there's different things that you could do, but falconry is taking game with a bird of prey. And you need to find someone out there that hawks the type of game that you're going to be hawking. Obviously, you can do a red tail or a kestrel. There's apprentice birds, but you need to find somebody that hawks and that can guide you to do those things, because otherwise you're just wasting your time. You're going to be putting 2 years into an apprenticeship, and even if they graduate you because they're a paper sponsor, you're in the same place, you're in the same boat as when you started. So that would be my advice. Get someone who hawks to sponsor you, and make sure that they've hawked. A sponsor should be able to fly a red tail and a kestrel. Those are the apprentice birds. It's just, if you, find someone that can hawk both of those things and get at it.
No, I feel you. And I think that there's a lot to be said for, I really wish that some of there would be an easier way to go about modifying some of the rules and regs for sponsorships, in some ways. I know it's not an easy way. There's not really an easy way to go about that at all.
Yeah.
But yeah. It would be nice if there was a way to, make sure more of that stuff was actually I think honestly, it should be more of a requirement that people should get out for a full season with people beforehand, before they can officially be signed off on as an apprentice or whatever. And
I don't know,
Yeah.
but to each their own. We all have our opinions. Falconers
That's right.
have opinions,
That's right.
you know?
Mine is not popular, but
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that, well, we all know. We all know. The
Right.
community knows, you know, for the most part, I think what works best and what doesn't. But
Yeah.
to that end, I think that's a good note to end on, though. And we'll talk more here in the near future. We've been talking about it off and on for about a year now on how to make this whole audiobook thing happen. But
absolutely.
but I'm still wanting to do that. If you're down, trying to figure out a way to do that. Now that I kind of know how to go about doing it and make it happen, and know
Yeah.
the process now that I've put out my the first one that I've produced now, and I think that people would, you know, like I said, the more availability for all these things, especially if it's in the sultry voice of the Falconers that have written the books themselves. I think there's an appeal for that, or a demand for that. So I'm hoping to be able to do more of that, and hopefully we can figure out those logistics soon. So
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you having me on, and what you do to preserve all of these folks, all of these really great falconers out there.
I do my best, but before we officially hit stop here, go ahead and plug your stuff real quick so people can find your stuff and get stuff from you, and we'll call it good.
Yeah, the business is Mountain State Falconry Supply. It's www.mountainstatefalconrysupply.com. And we are on Instagram and Facebook too, so you can find us on there.
And once again, the name of your book as well, and where they can find that.
And the book is Squirrel Hawking in Appalachia. The second edition just sold out in print, so it is available on Amazon on Kindle right now.
Appreciate you making the time at the butt crack of dawn this morning to do this. And seems like this has been in the works for a while. I'm glad we were finally able to do it.